If you're enjoying the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This edition of our podcast is brought to you by 360 Health and Well Balanced Nutrition.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Hey everybody, we are back and we have the opposite kind of book to share with you today compared to our last episode. We talked about a book that, we had strong negative feelings towards, Skinny Bitch, and the way the authors were condescending and shaming and judging our food habits. And then today we have a fun one called The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins, which is all about encouraging yourself and being your biggest cheerleader. So I'll just start with this because it's the opposite. So in this book, something she talks about is body dissatisfaction. And it's books like the one we just talked about.
You mean Skinny Bitches?
Yes, that can influence us. So according to research, approximately 91% of women are unhappy with their bodies, and the media and images that you are bombarded with don't help. When you constantly wish you looked different or see a world reflected back in a way that makes you feel like you don't belong, your entire existence feels like something is wrong with you. So wasn't that kind of what we were all feeling when we were, reading, like we don't belong if we don't follow the skinny bitch diet or if we're not a skinny bitch? So in the book, The High Five Habit, Mel goes on to say, hating your body, your past, or yourself won't motivate you. Research shows that beating ourselves up makes it harder to feel motivated. If you don't believe that you deserve to be celebrated or feel good, why on earth would you do the hard stuff it takes to change? So this book and high-fiving yourself is about coming from a place of self-love, self-worth, that you deserve to feel happier and healthier, and that you can take the steps to take better care of yourself. So I am excited to dig into this book. Let's kind of go back to the beginning and talk about the High Five Habit.
Let's do it. You want to talk about when it was published?
Yeah.
That's a very current book, 2021.
I love it.
I had the good fortune of seeing Mel Robbins in person. She was a keynote speaker at a conference I went to. This lady is unbelievably energetic. I thought she was going to, she may have done cartwheels across the stage, but she is alive when she does a presentation. And this was the last keynote thing that she did before she started a television show, which unfortunately hit a bump because of the COVID pandemic. They just got into the season, and she mentions that, I think, in her book, that they were told to shut down and leave and go home, and they didn't get to say goodbye to the staff and all the people that were in the studio with them. So it was kind of an abrupt end to that. And then she may have been writing this book during that time that she wasn't on TV. She's written some other books. I ran into her in 2011. She had a book called Stop Saying You're Fine, The No BS Guide to Getting What You Want. And then the 5-second rule was what she was talking about in her keynote speak with us. So she's a very engaging author, easy to read, motivational in every aspect, I think, and sort of a coach in your corner.
Yes. Yeah. I love her motivational style, very down to earth, like willing to share the details about her life to make you feel like, hey, I'm a real person too, and I'm sharing these things with you because they work for me. And this is what I have to do to get over my anxiety, to do these things, to be a best-selling author.
And even though it's her story, she does the research to say there's evidence that shows what I'm going to share with you can work.
Exactly. She's really into making sure that it's research-backed and also not getting too in the weeds with the research in terms of making it easy to understand the research that she's done. So I appreciated that part of her book that, she calls to light lots of evidence to back up the high five habit. Just in an easy to read way.
Yeah, and she's a very well-educated woman. She's has been a lawyer and did that because she thought she was supposed to or something. And she got started on it and said, I don't like this. I don't want to be a lawyer.
Right.
And so lots of us have found ourselves in places and had to make career changes. And so she has kind of found her groove. Mm-hmm. And I think she's really happy in her groove right now, even though she shares the turmoil that it has caused her family.
And I think one reason I like her is because she found out she had ADHD in adulthood, which I have as well. So I like learning from women who are very successful and have found out that, they just think a little differently and they work around it and figure out how to make the most of it.
Yeah. So the title of it is The High Five Habit. So there's a habit, and she tells you about it in the front of the book, and then she develops the idea. And then at the back of the book, she gives you some gifts. She says, wait, there's more. You can join her on her website. You can buy her journal, but she gives you the pages from it, which is a workbook thing that helps you develop this habit that she's talking about and make it part of your routine practice, because it's a very simple thing to do. Mm-hmm. But I forgot to do it this morning. And I did her 5-day high five challenge, and I posted on a Facebook page, here's my picture today, and here's what I'm doing, just to see what would happen. I had a really good time doing it. It's not a big thing, but you and I just went and we high-fived ourselves, in the mirror. Which is the way we're supposed to do it. So let's tell them what the high five habit is.
Yeah, so the high five habit is simply looking in the mirror first thing in the morning, and unlike what we naturally will be drawn to do is look at our imperfections or, call out negative things, negative stories we have about ourselves or worry about the day. She wants you to raise your hand up in the mirror and high five yourself, and that, she says that can turn your day around, start on a good note, and that there's things happening in your brain when you do that.
Yeah, that idea of using the mirror, though, she said, is important because, if you see, like if I see Kristen and I go, Kristen, you've got this, and I give you a high five, and you go, yeah, I've got it. There's that exchange between two people. And when you're in the mirror, your brain needs to see that other person giving the high five to you. And so this is what we call neurobionics, which was neuroaerobics, which is a new word for me. And she references it early in her book. It's a discovery by Lawrence Katz, neurobiologist and researcher at our North Carolina Duke University, saying that these neurobic interventions are one of the easiest, most powerful ways to create new pathways and connections in your brain. It's a routine activity, let's say looking at yourself in the mirror, paired with two things: something unexpected that involves your senses, like high-fiving in the mirror, and an emotion that you'd like to feel, like celebration. And so, we talk about aerobics for our cardiovascular health. They're talking about neurobics to reprogram brain connections into more positive climates, rather than this, like you said, when you first look at yourself, you might tear yourself, oh God, you look tired, your hair's a mess, you should have gotten more sleep, why did you eat that stuff last night, you got a headache. You get that out of the way and say, you know what, I'm centered, my body's great, it's awake, and we're going. High five.
Right, no matter what. I believe in you, yes. You got this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's doing
gosh
something.
Darn it, people like me.
Yeah, and there's something going on in your brain there that's very, very positive.
Yes, you're fusing that positive association. Because think about the last time you had a high five. Like, doesn't it just make you feel good when you think about it? Mm-hmm. And I want to share this study.
Oh, you got to smile, right, when you do that?
You have to smile. You naturally smile. So it is a habit, right? It's hard to remember to do. So I've high-fived myself in the mirror some mornings, but I haven't made it a habit. Well, one thing I have done, because it feels so good to high-five, is I've ended every single one of my nutrition coaching sessions with a high-five.
Oh, there you go.
So it's been wonderful, because it's just like what a way to end on a high note,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, no matter what we talked about today,
You've got this.
high five, you got this. You're doing great. But what they did was what I want to share, the science of the kids who got high fives versus the kids who versus the kids who were just encouraged to try better. And the kids who got the high five did the best in the study. I'll have to come back to that later because y'all deserve to hear more details, and I'm sorry I don't have that.
Well, while you're looking for that, I can say, here's why you must change your mind. She's talking about if you think there's something wrong with you, you need to stop focusing on that and focus on what's right with you.
Yes.
And one of the things is there are 3 reasons why you have to stop beating yourself up and learn how to love yourself and empower yourself. And this kind of takes us to those other books that we've learned about, willpower and self-compassion. Remember those books that we've discussed, as well as the willpower science thing that we did? Well, it says, when you focus on what's wrong, you will never change. The second thing is hating your body, your past, or yourself won't motivate you. And I wanted to develop that one. It says, research shows that beating ourselves up makes it harder to feel motivated. If you don't believe that you deserve to be celebrated or feel good, why on earth would you do the hard stuff it takes to change? Your first... Didn't we just read that in the Skinny
that was
Bitches?
what I read. No, that's how I opened
okay,
the show
good.
today.
Okay, so you must first love and accept what you are. And this idea is you want to say, I deserve to feel happier and healthier. I can take the steps to make better care of myself. And then the third thing, the more you repeat it, the more evidence you see.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to reiterate and to reread, because it's true. And we make the mistake of waiting to feel worthy of self-love to celebrate ourselves. Mm-hmm. But just because we woke up today and we're
that's a celebration, baby.
Exactly. And when you start your day in that positive state, you're more likely to take action. You're more productive for the rest of the day. So starting first thing in the morning, there's something to that as well.
She starts one of her chapters and she says, why do I torture myself? She received a text from one of their daughters when she was writing the book, and the text said, how do I not feel like the ugliest girl at the bar every time I go out? So my first reaction was, don't go to the bar. Why are you putting yourself in a context where that's what's going to be judged, is how pretty you are? So I had my initial reaction was, don't put yourself in a situation where its superficiality is driving the game. But that's not where she went with that. She said it's the kind of text that breaks your heart because there isn't a damn thing you can say to change how she feels about herself at this moment in her life. She feels that she must be pretty.
Right.
And this is, I think a societal problem we have, that pretty is superficial. The way I look. Why do I feel like the ugliest girl at the bar every time I go out when she's a beautiful woman? I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Her mother says she is. And I know I have children, and you can tell them you're phenomenal. And they are. Your children are absolutely beautiful. But they may not believe you as their mother because, mothers don't tell the truth, but we do.
And we can be our worst critic and enemy. And like you said earlier, why focus on the negative? What's wrong with you? Focus on the positive. Like, we all have weird quirks and things.
What happened to you?
Exactly. Oprah Winfrey and Bruce Perry.
Yeah.
I listen.
So what did she end up saying to her? Was that the conversation they had around the family table that, we can beat ourselves up and we can blame everything on ourselves, but we have to stop.
Well, she just
change
says
the narrative.
In this, she says, I can tell you all the cheesy things that authors, motivational speakers, and mothers say to someone they love who is single and feels discouraged. You haven't met someone who deserves someone as fantastic as you yet, but you will. And that doesn't help.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Oh, she talks about her weird mirror face. It's like, oh, I could relate to that. So her kids make fun of her because she makes this weird mirror face every time she sees her reflection. And it's our like attempt to fix and adjust your face to try to make yourself more attractive. She says, why do we do this? And you don't even realize you're doing it. Just watch the teenagers in your life. They all have a mirror face. It's their good side and how they tilt their heads slightly or suck in their cheeks when they try to take their photo, their selfies.
Yeah, and she says that when you're doing that, it's a neuroplastic response. Your default thinking, the mirror face, you're making your hyper focus on what's wrong. The good news is you can change that. It's a neuroplastic response, and you can reprogram that. There was a story in here about her son with the blue hair.
Yeah.
He was maybe 11, and they moved to a new school district for him. So he was going to be the new kid with the blue hair. And he was not having a problem with any of it. But she kept saying, don't you want to get your hair cut before you go in there? And then his sisters piled on top of him and said, don't you need to get a haircut before you go to school? People. They were worried that he would be judged. He had, which was not in his context at all. He was just who he was. And yet they were afraid for him because they could see he was going to get, that's not real. I mean, they were just projecting he would be, maybe bullied or whatever for the way he looked, but that was their problem.
Right.
And it was based on nothing.
And it's a good example of how that can rub off on, and we can pass these bad habits down. She felt bad for that after the fact and was able to see, like, maybe I just needed to let him be himself.
And she said she actually liked his hair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like she was acting like she didn't like it, but she said, I really did like it. So she was even in conflict over her own behavior.
Yeah.
As a mom.
She was just worried about him not fitting in.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes me back to Brene Brown and how she highlights the difference between fitting in and belonging.
Yes.
And I think we all need to move towards belonging where we're accepted as we are, the way we look with blue hair, or going back to our conversation a couple minutes ago, whether or not we have to go to number 1 or number 2 in the bathroom.
Oh, we're back to that again. Okay.
Or if we're a skinny bitch or not,
mm-hmm.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah, so what were you saying, Tim? You could relate to the new school?
Well, yeah, because I moved here to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, after the 9th grade into the 10th grade, which is a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no problem because I have no problem meeting people. I walked in like I had always gone here. But I did take the opportunity to get rid of my cursed name, my family and all my friends in West Virginia, where I'm from, knew me as Timmy, and I hated that name.
Oh.
I have always hated that name. That's why my son's name, even though it is Timothy, is not Timmy.
Mm-hmm.
It's Trey. But I took the opportunity to change that because nobody knew me. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the opposite of that, changing because they didn't want people to make fun of me. I've never liked it. I didn't want it.
You didn't ask for it.
I didn't ask for it. So... Yeah. I changed it on there, but
you asked to be called Tim.
Yeah, yeah, I did,
and it worked. And that's that power of positivity.
And my wife says she knows how long somebody's known me, from whether they call me Timmy or Tim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the kind of motivation I love from Mel Robbins, and for that teenager who doesn't feel pretty in the bar, for, me and you, if we're looking at our wrinkles in the mirror, or...
I don't have any wrinkles.
I look at mine. So here's what she says, right? This is worth reading out loud. You don't need to change anything to deserve the love and acceptance you need. You just need to start giving yourself the validation. Next time you stand in front of a mirror, stop poking, prodding, and picking yourself apart. It's only making you feel defeated, rejected, and discouraged. And it sets the tone for what you think about and how you feel all day. Instead, start each morning looking for qualities that you appreciate about yourself, the little intricacies you ignore, your strength and your intuition, how your body has taken care of you, or how those stretch marks remind you of the kids you have. See, there is nothing wrong with you. You may not be happy with where you are in life right now, the balance in your bank account, the number on the scale, the size of your pants. Lord knows it hasn't been easy, and yet here you are, still standing, resilient, intelligent, and strong, still waking up every day and pushing yourself to learn and grow and become a better person. And honestly, that makes you awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So just put that on repeat every morning. Right? And, you know, we call to light these issues in society and media, and we can advocate for those to change, and, you know, body diversity and just acceptance of who we are and more belonging. But it does start with us. If, you know, we have to be able to do that for ourselves.
Yeah, because nobody else is going to.
Right.
Yeah.
No one invests in that time more than you.
In chapter 8, she talks about why is life so easy for them and not for me, which is part of what you're talking about. You can start saying, you know, gosh, they look great, and look at me. You know, I've got these bulges, my jeans don't fit, all the stuff that you just went through, because you're comparing yourself to somebody else. So she has a discussion here about jealousy. You know, I had this toxic belief that if someone else has what I want, it means I will never have it. I didn't understand jealousy and how to use it to my advantage, so it just triggered all my insecurities. If you live your life in constant, unrelenting, grinding comparison to others, always finding yourself wanting, you will never be able to see yourself as capable of making it happen too. And I kind of like wordsmithing a little bit, and so I was looking at the difference between jealousy and envy. And jealousy is, it's more of a rival hostility relationship, and envy is more of it's not as malicious. So it's like, I want what they have, but I don't hope they have a bad go of it. But in jealousy, it's like, I hope they fall on their face, and I want that car, you know, or I hope they, you know, just, it's got a malicious tone to it. So I prefer the word envious in conversations, but maybe she did mean some of that maliciousness.
Did you reference did you go to Brene Brown's book to reference?
Absolutely.
That?
That was and that was called The Atlas of the Heart, and I struggled with it. But she did make that distinction between those words. And I took them to heart. So anyway, in here, one of the things I put a little heart next to when I was reading was when you're a mom and you know, you have that daughter that said she was ugly at the bar or whatever, and those kinds of things. There's a thing that when you're talking to someone, you can just say, do you want me to listen to you, or would you like me to give you my thoughts?
I like that.
And that's such great constructive advice, because when you use those words, the person that's struggling that you're there with, and you want to stay with them, you don't want them to push you away too, because they need a companion. That's good wording. So the whole book, that was my most favorite one.
Yeah, I like that. That's good to write down and to remember.
Yeah. Because, you know, we can take care of ourselves, but we also some of us like to take care of other people, and sometimes we think we have to fix things for everybody and tell them what to do, whether they're ready for that or not. And that's not very effective usually. But this is, do you want me to listen, or do you want me to offer some ideas?
My wife and I have an agreement with each other that at the beginning of a conversation, because you know, sometimes I just have to vent, and then the thing she says sometimes gets to me even more. She goes, I should have asked before I gave anything, are you wanting consolation or are you wanting solutions? And I now we know when we are in the beginning of our conversation, I just want you to listen, or help me figure this out is how we approach that. And still only one argument in 12 years together.
Nice.
Well, you know, and if you're with that person and you can have the conversation and they have a limiting belief about something, what she's recommending is we learn to flip it. So exercise, you know, flipping those things. And so in this jealousy situation, if somebody else has it, that means I can't have it. flip that around to, hey, if they got it, that means I can get it too.
Right.
And I think, just learning to flip to the positive, which is what you're doing in the mirror in the morning.
Absolutely.
You're learning to flip from
the
how
negative
awful
to...
you look to how amazing a creature you really are.
Absolutely. I like also how she goes into, when we beat ourselves up about the mistakes we make or the things that happen to us, that's another opportunity to flip it. And I wrote this down because it was powerful to me. What she says to flip it for herself is, whatever this is in the moment that sucks, this is preparing me for something amazing.
Oh, that's great.
This is preparing me for something amazing. I like that. Yeah. And so every mistake we make can be an invaluable lesson, right? Like, I think it perturbs some people to say that everything happens for a reason, right? But we can say that we can make something into a lesson, or, believe that it is preparing me for something else that's going to be awesome, even though it might not be what I want now.
Mm-hmm.
And then she kind of goes on the line to say that, like, when we dream, when we have this vision, for her, it was to have the best-selling book, right? A number one selling book, but things happened and that didn't end up. So she says the purpose of the dream is to provide the fuel that drives you and the map that shows you the direction to head in. It may or may not lead you to the destination you think it will.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a book called Obliquity that talks about that. If you need to set goals and you need to have a map, but when you put all that energy in that direction, oftentimes something happens off obliquely that you weren't expecting, but is really good.
Right.
And that's a really great book, Obliquity. It's a little small book.
That's a good idea, yeah.
But that's what she's saying. It may not be what you expect, but something is, that energy that you're moving is going to produce something.
Right. The finish line is not necessarily the point.
Mm-hmm.
When you're able to trust that, all your hard work is leading you somewhere and somewhere good, then you will create miracles in your life. That's what she says. Yeah. It's so cool. And then she talks about this. How do you say that?
I can't read.
Zergonic
effect? I don't know. Yeah, I looked it up too.
Maybe our producer can help us pronounce it right. But it's basically telling...
Spell it to me.
Zeigarnik. Zeigarnik. It's telling your mind that something is important to you. So it's giving it a set of directives. The secret is remaining open to the possibility that you are capable of making it happen. So she kind of ties this to manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned out for her like she was thinking of hearts, so she saw the shape of a heart everywhere, whether it was in a leaf or a rock. Or
pronouncenames.com.
Sorry.
Zeigarnik.
Zeigarnik.
There we go.
Zeigarnik. Is that where she talks about the tarot cards and stuff? Because she says, and Mel's going to pull out the tarot cards and all the...
Yeah, she's like, this is going to be woo-woo, but trust me, there's research behind it.
I made a note there. I said, what's wrong with that? I mean, pulling those things out could be good.
Right.
You got to stay open,
Yeah.
But when she talks about, what you focus on is what's going to show up, right? And then she goes into manifesting done right. And I've made this mistake, which is like, okay,
oh, no, flip that. It's not a mistake.
Oh, I've learned this lesson.
Yes.
That, okay, I want this one thing, and I'm going to visualize myself having this one thing. Maybe it's this office that I want. Mm-hmm. But what she says is you visualize yourself running in the rain. You visualize yourself not in that office, but doing all of the hard nitty-gritty things that it takes to get there. Because we just visualize the happy, positive moments. And the science is if you visualize yourself doing all the things, including the nitty-gritty, then that's going to make it easier for you to get those things done that aren't necessarily pleasant. And I'm like, that's a neat lesson I'm learning here.
Reflect on that one for a while.
So not just visualize what you want, but doing the nitty-gritty to get there is important to visualize.
I wanted to, one other thing that she says gets in our way, we talked about envy or jealousy, whatever she wanted to call it. Guilt is another one. And she uses a really cool example from her dad, who loves to build pool tables and made this magnificent pool table and made a gift of it to her. So here comes this gigantic piece of furniture, that she said she didn't do well with the whole exercise. That she accepted it and she resented it. She didn't want it. There's all these wrong things about this pool table because she really needed the space for her office, but she had to, make it into a playroom, and then she had to put things on top of the pool table. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
But she couldn't confront her dad and say, I don't want the pool table, because she knew it was a gift
guilty
from his heart.
Yeah.
And anyway, she goes through this whole gyration of how she finally, made it work. And she did confront him finally and said, Dad, I love you, but I don't want the pool table in my house right now. So we're going to put it in storage, or so. I can't remember where it went. But then they built a home and they had a room and they
just for the
pool table. And so it had a nice resolution. But it was a fun story, and the way she wove you through her struggles with not wanting to disappoint her father. How and there's so many examples of that in my life and probably everyone else's, where somebody's done something really nice for you, but it really wasn't the right thing that you needed or could use or whatever, and it just creates this horrible thing. And just confronting it, confronting it,
and just normalizing that some of your decisions are going to disappoint people, but if they're still the best decision for you, that's what you've got to do. And that's a good and hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, but she gives a really good discussion of how to do that in the book.
Yeah.
So she's a fun author. And like we said, she reveals her personal thing. And I think in that chapter that you were just referencing about manifesting, is that the one where she uses the painting? Where she went into a coffee shop or something, saw this painting, and it took her breath away. And through the years, she kept remembering this painting.
Yeah, that was a really neat story.
And she was not living in a place that looked like that painting. But at the time that she actually gets to purchase the painting, she's living in a setting that's very, very much pastoral, like the painting was. So there was something in that vision of the painting that was calling her to move her life. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really beautiful story she shared too.
Yeah, and that was kind of, I think, one example she uses to say, the dream is to provide the fuel. The finish line is not necessarily what.
But she knew she was going to own it. I will own this painting.
Yeah.
And then years went by, and she ended up owning that painting.
And she didn't know how it would happen.
Oh, do you remember how it happened?
I do, but it was really expensive, and she was like, I don't know. It doesn't seem possible for me to get it, but I'm going to get it somehow, some way.
Yeah, and then when she approaches the artist had sold it. It was gone. But it was the only time in that artist's history that she had painted 2 pictures of the same thing. And she didn't know why she had done it. And then when Mel comes to, inquire, she says, come look in the art shed. Here's your painting. I did it for you, and I didn't know I was doing it for you. Oh, I thought that was so cool. I love those kinds of things that happen in life that you just don't encounter very often. But when you do, you say, Yeah. What do you recommend this book?
Absolutely. It was really fun. And I have the hard copy, but I also listened to part of it on Audible. Mm-hmm. And I really like the way she reads it. It's very, you could listen to it regularly and have that kind of motivation that she's known for giving you, and her tone and everything.
If you do the High Five Challenge, which is still out there, you will pretty much get the gist of the book, because I had read the book and then I did the challenge and I thought, oh, she's just reading me the book again. But it was okay. And she's like, hey, everybody, I'm so glad you're here. I can't believe you made it. I'm so proud of you for making it here. She's
full of energy. Yeah.
So I do think if you want a quick little habit, she's got some good ideas. She's a fun read, and I would give it a recommendation.
Yeah, clearly you will find some gems in here the way that Eleanor and I did. So I am Kristen Norton of Well Balanced Nutrition, one of the registered dietitians available to help you create healthy habits around nutrition and lifestyle. And visit us at wellbalancednutrition.com to see what we're about, join our community, and maybe sign up for a clarity call. We'd love to have a conversation with you to see if maybe nutrition coaching is right for you.
And I'm Eleanor at 360health4u.com. We make healthy happen. We often start with a meology assessment where we can give you some recommendations on products that might support your wellness program. So we hope you have enjoyed listening. Leave a comment if you can, and let us know what you'd like us to read next.
Until next time, here's a
High five.
high five.
Views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.